Everyone's telling you what Trump meant, but I don't think they're being honest. Now, let me be clear right up front. I'm not defending President Trump's True Social post. But what you're watching right now from the mainstream media is manufactured outrage, because the same people who are demanding condemnation today are the same exact people who remained silent during years of threats, harassment, and escalation.
I just don't think this is said enough. It needs to be said again. Donald Trump is one of the worst and most horrible human beings who's ever lived.
That context matters, and pretending it doesn't is the real story. So let's talk about what's being ignored.
I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all, in any way, shape, or form. He was deranged, first, and as far as Trump is concerned.
Insulting someone who's just been murdered, who leaves children behind. It's so hateful and vile.
President Trump doubled down on slamming Rob after claiming he and his wife died from anger caused by, quote, a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS.
It's interesting that Jimmy Kimmel mentioned that Rob Reiner left children behind, because Charlie Kirk also left very young children behind, babies basically, and these same people, a lot of them celebrated that. And Jimmy Kimmel is one of the most hateful people on television when it comes to Donald Trump, so I really don't give him any credibility at all when it comes to criticism of President Trump.
What you said and what you've doubled down on make you bad for the country.
Because you disagree with people doesn't mean that you have to hate people. I think Rob Reiner is a great patriot.
Actor James Woods, who has praised Trump, was on Fox News defending his Ghosts of Mississippi director.
I judge people by how they treat me, and Rob Reiner was a godsend in my life. He doesn't agree with me either, but he also respects my patriotism. We had a different path to the same destination, which was a country we both love.
So James Woods, I believe, is a Republican, or at least tends to lean that direction. I don't know if he's ever publicly came out and said so, but apparently a close friend of Rob Reiner, or a business associate, has a good opinion of him. They had a good relationship, and what he's saying is true. You know, you can disagree with someone without hating them, and Rob Reiner was always respectful to him, and they both saw each other as patriots. But the difference here is that he's missing, absolutely missing in this whole thing that he's pointing out. Rob Reiner and Donald Trump did not have that kind of relationship. Rob Reiner had hatred for Donald Trump because he disagreed with his politics, and he did not speak well of Donald Trump or appreciate his patriotism. So he did not give those same courtesies to Donald Trump that he extended to James Woods. And that's what James Woods, I guess, is not understanding here. There was a difference in how he was treated as to how Donald Trump was treated by the same person. But everything he said there is correct. You should be able to disagree with people without hating them. But unfortunately, in this case, it was not true.
Ironically, Michelle was the photographer who shot the cover photo for Trump's book, The Art of the Deal.
Now, how many of you knew that? I didn't know that about that. She was the photographer that shot the photo cover for Art of the Deal. So that's a pretty interesting fact there. That's really a strange fact that I didn't know. Now, CNN, they're going to corner the Republican panelists here, and they're going to try to force them to condemn Donald Trump, condemn what he said. They're going to try to get them to condemn Donald Trump's statement. They want them to blame him for all the hatred that goes on in the country, all the negative political rhetoric. According to them, it all comes from the right. So CNN is really just looking to damage President Trump at any opportunity. And certainly this is a good opportunity for them to try and do so, and they did not waste any time.
Right? You hear them talking about the left doing this. And then the statement, how do you square those two things?
I don't. I disagree with the statement. I wish he hadn't made it. And as I mentioned, what happened after Charlie died, lots of people were quick to celebrate the death, call him racist, call him Nazi, attribute statements to him that he never made, et cetera, et cetera. And those of us on the right who knew Charlie and loved Charlie, were quick to call that out and say, this is misinformation. This is a heinous way to treat someone who left behind a grieving widow and little children. So I don't square it. Because
to be fair, I do want to just
we're still processing that.
Yeah.
And if we want to expect other people to live up to a standard that they didn't live up to after Charlie, we should.
But Scott, this is more than just other people, right? And I agree with you. Anybody who celebrated after Trump got shot, shame on them. Anybody who celebrated after Charlie Kirk got murdered, shame on them. But I refuse to hold some trolls on the internet or some, influencers or fringe people, whomever they are.
Well, it was elected officials, members of Congress, very important.
I will not hold them.
Yeah, that didn't hold up very well. What she's trying to say is all the hatred, all the things that happened when Charlie Kirk died, that all came from the far left fringe members of society, the wackos on the internet and the crazy influencers on the left. But we all know in reality it was Democrat politicians, it was Democrat donors, people in Hollywood who are very involved with the Democrat Party. Now, I do see that Rob Reiner had good things to say about Charlie Kirk, gracious things to say about him after his death. But for the most part, Democrats, by and large, celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk, some of them openly. So, to me, what she's saying there is completely false. And also, they're trying to equate the two. The reaction of President Trump to the death of Rob Reiner to the reaction of some wacko, far out liberals that they don't associate with, and their reaction to Charlie Kirk's death. And reality just tells us that that's not true.
The bar for Donald Trump is in hell, right? That's where our expectations are for him. And for somebody to simply say that the president of the United States, when somebody dies in the fashion that they did, should just be quiet, we need to all look at ourselves and say that is the standard that we hold for the president of the United States, that this man that is 80 years old is incapable of actually having empathy. This man who's 80 years old is incapable of being an example for our children, regardless of Democrat or Republican. And the bigger condemnation I have is for those individuals who call themselves evangelical Christians who surround the president of the United States, but then look at this type of nonsense and turn a blind eye to it. He has a prayer council. They lay hands on him with what? Gloves? Mittens? I mean, that ain't getting through. I mean, who are they praying to? And so I have a great deal of disdain for, and listen, there are people who will say, I love Donald Trump's policies. I hate the man that he is. That is just a very, very weird paradigm that I'm not sure I could find myself in.
He almost let it slip there. He has a great disdain for people who voted for Trump, even though they have issues with him personally, his personality, things that he says. And that's their right if people want to vote that way, because the alternative is horrible. We've seen that. We saw that 4 years under Joe Biden. So I don't blame people who don't necessarily like Donald Trump, but vote for him based on his policies. But there's plenty of people who love Donald Trump. And I really think if Donald Trump did not experience what he has experienced over the last 10 years, the attacks and the personal attacks, the legal attacks, the attacks on his family, you think about his home being raided, being prosecuted. They threatened to put his son in prison for the rest of his life based on the Russian conspiracy that they manufactured. He was spied on by President Obama. He's treated horribly by the media. He's always being compared to Adolf Hitler, always being referred to as a Nazi. And he's had to endure that for many years. So I think if he didn't have to go through that and was treated like a human being and with a little bit of respect by the mainstream media and the Democrats, I think you might see a different version of Donald Trump. but he has been through hell, and a normal person would not have survived what Donald Trump survived over the last 10 years. And, maybe that's galvanized him in a way that some people don't like. Donald Trump is a fighter. He's a bomb thrower when he's provoked. And I don't think he's going to change now because he's seen what they want to do to him. If they ever get power over him again, they're going to try again to destroy him and destroy his family. And I don't think he has any mercy for these people. And Hollywood, people in Hollywood, very involved in that. They're very vocal about Donald Trump. Rob Reiner was a huge critic of Donald Trump who really told lies and spread misinformation about Donald Trump constantly bringing up white supremacy and the Nazis and Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler and all these things. So, I don't see any reason why he would have good feelings towards a lot of these people. Now, was the timing and the phrasing and everything in the message acceptable? Probably not. To most people, we probably feel like maybe that was very inappropriate, but you can see and understand how this is a fight that's been going on back and forth. This is not just one person acting out for no reason, which is kind of what they've tried to make it sound like. So let's just give you an example of how crazed some of these people are and where their minds are at right now when they attack President Trump.
It's not that Donald Trump is not a nice man. It's not that he's thoroughly unpleasant. He's evil. Donald Trump is one of the worst and most horrible human beings who's ever lived. I mean, ever lived. Ever lived. Think of serial killers. Think of mass murderers. Think of tyrants who've killed millions during their reigns. We've had American commentators today put up Trump's post and say there are no words. Bull crap. There are words. That's evil. That's psychopathic. That's not human. That's monstrous. And until we have the courage to call him what he is, then America will never move beyond him. I think most of his supporters, because they've told me, because I used to be a Trump supporter, Joe, I know he's a jerk, but look what he's doing.
Now, that's just an example of how affected mentally so many people are on the left, because that's not a normal reaction. If you read the post by Donald Trump, consider the time when he sent it, that's not a normal reaction to that. And there's something wrong there. That person either is not being honest or there's something seriously mentally wrong going on in his mind, because that is not the appropriate reaction, or logical reaction to the post that he's talking about. But there's more.
Now, I interviewed Rob Reiner on this show 3 months ago. And aside from what he just said about Charlie Kirk, as we just heard, which was, I thought, extraordinarily gracious, given he politically disagreed with almost everything Charlie Kirk stood for. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. I got to say, Cenk, that just crosses every line of just basic human decency. When the left mocked Charlie Kirk after he was murdered, and I thought we'd reached a kind of consensus that this, whatever side of the divide you're on, this is just unacceptable. That when people get murdered, you just show basic respect.
Now, one thing I noticed that Piers Morgan is doing here, he's taking the reaction, the celebration of Charlie Kirk's death, and he's trying to lower that to mocking of Charlie Kirk's death. And he's taking a comment by Donald Trump that a lot of people might consider to be mocking someone who's just passed away, and he's trying to escalate that to a level of celebration, which it absolutely is not. And he's trying to do that for his audience to kind of make the two things seem equal when they're not in any way.
And I was brokenhearted when Charlie Kirk was killed. And I condemned the people celebrating it because, my God, if you're part of the peace movement, you're on the left, etc. We're supposed to be for nonviolence more than anybody else.
I don't think anybody believes that anymore, that the left is the party of peace and the party of nonviolence. That's mostly where the violence comes from, and they are the anti-law enforcement party, so there's no peace in left-controlled cities, that's for sure.
I feel like as the president of the United States, he does not, with all due respect, have any obligation to need to tweet about Rob Reiner. I feel like he has, other things going on, and that's reasonable. If I were in Trump's inner circle, would I had told him to post this? Probably not. I'd suggest strongly for him to just not say anything at all. But I really think we're doing a disservice by drawing parallels from this to political violence, even bringing up Charlie Kirk's murder. I get why you brought it up, Pierce, because you're saying, well, if you don't like how the left celebrated his death, don't celebrate this. But nobody's celebrating Rob Reiner's death. I hope, as Jillian said,
it sounds like Donald Trump is getting. Yeah, but look, it does sound like he's getting pretty close to it. I mean, when he says that he got killed reportedly due to the anger he caused others with his mind-crippling disease, Trump derangement syndrome, there is zero evidence for any of that.
So how is that a celebration in any way? That might be misinformation, but how is that in any way celebrating the death of the man? Two completely different things. Again, trying to make something out of it that it's not.
I don't think there's any political motivation for this attack whatsoever, but Donald Trump has made it political by inferring very clearly that this happened because Rob Reiner attacked him. And that to me is where...
I disagree. I disagree, Pierce. I'll tell you what I think his intention was, and I will also preface by saying he did not get the message across. I feel like his intention was, hey, everybody, look, although this man hated me, and although he had Trump derangement syndrome, he ended it, putting us together with may they rest in peace, whatever. I feel like what his intention was even though I disagree with him, the guy died, and I'm sorry for him. He did that in possibly the worst way.
Stop it.
And I just don't feel like this is really shocking to anybody here. I feel like we've all been following Trump over the last 10 years. And as Wajahat said, that's his style. You like it or not, that's who he is. This tweet was wrong, but it's not, necessarily so shocking for all of us to see. And also, it shouldn't be going after
I actually did find it quite shocking. And I have known Trump a long time. I am a friend of Trump's, good, bad, and ugly. And I got to say, Roland, there's no defense for this.
I think she missed it a little bit there. I understand where she was going, where she's saying, Trump is trying to point out the problems that there were between the two of them. But in the end, he, wished him well, rest in peace. She kind of, I think, is giving Trump a little bit too much credit there. But I understand what she's saying, and she's not too far off, I don't think. It's certainly not a celebration in any way like they're trying to make it out to be. Bill O'Reilly had some clarification and a pretty good take on all of this, I think.
Rob Reiner was a militant who hated Donald Trump.
That's true.
Despised him. And a very involved person in the progressive movement. But that doesn't mean you're happy when he dies, because it's just like Charlie Kirk. Remember the people who were happy when he died. So the president comes out and says, I think it's because Rob Reiner was a far-left politician who hated me, and that led to his death. That's a stretch. But even if that's what the president thinks, it's the wrong time to say it. Again, referencing Charlie Kirk. There are millions of people who didn't like Charlie Kirk, but you don't say it when he's assassinated. Now, the exchange caught my attention on News Nation last night between Chris Cuomo and a caller. And the caller desperately wanted Cuomo to ram these comments down Trump's throat.
We all know to be better than that.
Like to hear
but
you
why?
say.
But why? Why do you need it? Why do you need it? Why do you need it like it's a dog treat? Why do you need it like it's Chris is okay. He gets that Trump is a monster. Look, the guy's not a monster, okay? He plays the system.
It's hard for me to understand why so many Republican politicians especially are so quick to do the bidding of Democrats and condemn statements by Donald Trump. The advice a lot of times to them is Donald Trump should have just said nothing. Why don't they follow that advice themselves and just say nothing? If they say, will you condemn Donald Trump's statement? Why not just say no comment? Or I haven't had a chance to hear the full statement. Why do they have to give them that small win and condemn Donald Trump every time he says something? Because these are the people who say the most vile and terrible things about Republicans, about Donald Trump, and about Donald Trump supporters. So they have no moral ground to stand on. So why do Republicans always try to please them by giving them that win and saying, yes, I condemn what Donald Trump said? I'm not condemning what Donald Trump said, and I'm not approving of what Donald Trump said. I'm just staying neutral. I'm just saying, look, he said this. I have no comment about it. If I'm a politician, that's what I'm going to say. I have no comment.
So, virtually every single broadcaster ran with that Trump's horrible. But Cuomo didn't, because Cuomo understands the bigger picture. Okay? And he's not justifying Trump's statement. Okay? I'm not doing that. He's just saying, look, this is where we are politically now. It's hatred. That's where we are. There's no détente in America. There's no trying to understand the other side or trying to work out a compromise. It's hatred. Now, you can blame whoever you want to blame. But I'm not going to be a part of it.
I think Bill O'Reilly's absolutely right. This is kind of where politics is right now. And if you're going to be always being gracious and bowing to the left, you're going to get destroyed. Anyone with a lesser aggressive personality and temperament than Donald Trump would not have lasted this long. He would have been destroyed long ago. And he's in a fight for his political life every day. They are not okay to let him sit in the White House and finish out his term. There's been many assassination attempts. They've tried to take him out every way they can legally, and they want him gone. They have no use for Donald Trump at all. So if he doesn't fight them at every turn, he's not going to last much longer. It creates a political climate that's very aggressive back and forth. And every time that Donald Trump says something or puts out a statement that is aggressive or offensive, they lose their minds. And I really think the whole thing here is the Democrats, they suffered and they looked really bad after the Charlie Kirk assassination, because that's violence coming from the left. Again, killing a person on the right because they don't agree with them politically. And the celebration that occurred after that on the left, that was damage to the Democrat Party. And they're trying to recover some of that damage and inflict some of that damage now on Republicans, because in their mind, what Donald Trump said about Rob Reiner is the same thing that they did when Charlie Kirk died. And the two things are not the same, but they're trying to make it look that way and trying to force people to be outraged and to condemn Donald Trump. But I think the best advice that I've heard anybody give probably came from Senator John Kennedy.
Wise man once said nothing. Why? Because he's a wise man. I think President Trump should have said nothing. I think when the president says these sorts of things, it detracts from his policy achievements and his agenda. And just speaking personally, when someone is murdered or assassinated, as happened to Mr. Kirk, we should show him and his family respect.
Funny, that same CNN reporter right there, as I was looking for clips to put this video together, I saw him, many different video clips of him chasing down different Republican senators, Speaker Mike Johnson, Ted Cruz, trying to get them to condemn President Trump's statement. That was the big news of the day for him, and he was all over the place. And that's what they do. They try to get people to condemn Donald Trump, anything he says, anything he does, because they're hoping the public will latch on to that, and the disdain for Donald Trump will grow and spread and cost him politically. And that's really what this is all about. That's what this whole thing is about, is them trying to use this to hurt Donald Trump politically. A self-inflicted wound, maybe, by the president, but as far as the outrage, to me, it looks manufactured. I just don't understand why so many Republicans go along with it sometimes, and so many have came out and condemned what Trump said when they really didn't have to say anything at all. Now, let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.